Hi there, I'm Stella from Cracking Glass. Welcome to my open studio as part of Open Studio Knots. I'm going to be live streaming over the next 3 days, 3 times a day at 11, 1 and 4. So it'd be great if you could dip in and see what I'm up to. I'm going to be working in my studio or around the house over the next 3 days, and I'll do some snippets of about 10 minutes each time for you to catch up with where I'm up to. So today what I've decided to do is some Tiffany stained glass, which is working with copper foil and soldering the pieces together. It's not the traditional way of working with glass, which is using lead, but I'll be doing more of that tomorrow. So today it's going to be Tiffany, and a thing that I've been working on recently, or got interested in recently, is using a bit of paint. I don't have a kiln myself, but I've got some paint that I can fire in my domestic oven, and which means I can do lettering and detail onto pieces of glass and then incorporate that into my designs. So the work I'm doing today is using that technique a bit. I've got a few pieces that I've just taken out of my oven that have just been fired, which I'll show you, which are for some, here's one of them. So I'm using the painting on technique to do a bit of lettering. So this is part of this project over here. What I'm going to start on now is this design here, a little sunshine of saying never give up. So I already fired the writing here. So I've got the blue that goes around the edge. And what I'm going to be doing is cutting some sun rays. So this project, I'm using scrap glass mainly. So these are all leftover bits of glass that I can actually use. I mean, this one actually virtually fits perfectly. So I've chosen a little selection of glass, and I'm going to be cutting the pieces out of those pieces there. So with Tiffany, what you tend to do is have a pattern to build onto and a pattern that you cut up, so that you've then got pieces to draw around onto the glass and start building. So I've got over here a few pieces that I've drawn on, and this is, I decided I was going to put, this is the order of my colours, so I'm going to use this for piece number 5. Here's piece number 5, and I'm going to draw around it onto the glass. So I'll put all my protective gear on for working with cutting glass. So yeah, drawing around this pattern here. So use a Sharpie because that sticks to the glass at least until you've cut it out. And put the pattern number on. And then I'm going to use the glass cutter, which has got a cutting wheel, and it's got oil to lubricate in it. Lubricate the wheel, and you can see how I cut. So pressing quite hard and always scoring edge to edge, and then using these breaking pliers, which have got a sad mouth, to put pressure on the glass, bend it, and it snaps along the line usually. Okay, and then this one here, cutting along this one, pressing nice and hard, get that gritty sound, and can still use these pliers to do that. And then just cutting this end off to get the diagonal, like that. And this one I use these Grozers, which are just great little pliers for pulling little bits off. And keep it well over the pan, because you can see it splays everywhere a bit. Okay, so there's number 5, so that's ready to go in there. Okay, so this pattern is already starting to build up a little bit. I've chosen quite a dark blue for the outer bits of sky, because I want the sun rays to really shine through there. So these ones I've drawn on already, but I'm just going to put the numbers on. So it's quite a deep turquoise, if you see it with the light through. I love that colour. Okay, so cutting this number 11 out. So you see you can do gentle curves, and sometimes giving it a little tap helps the cut to go through. Again here, because I'm cutting, you know, from a small piece of glass. There we go, that's good. Just nip that end up. And that's going to go just there. Let's do number 4, because that's going to go next to the other piece I've already cut. And you can see I do one cut at a time with glass. You can't give it too many messages all at once. You just have to give it one bit to do at a time. And try and contain the glass always on this cutting table, the cutting cloth.
Why do you use a cloth?
So I use a cloth for 2 things really. One, to cushion it so that it's kind of held not on a brittle surface that could make it crack, and also to contain the little bits of glass, little tiny shards, as best as possible. And as I'm working, I can notice little tiny bits of glass building up, so I try really hard to keep it as clean as possible and keep brushing up, because I don't want to be rubbing my hands in those bits of glass. Okay, so that's that. Which is number 6 then? Oh yeah, I've chosen a red for the 6. Lovely red. This is a kind of a muffle glass, which is a kind of traditional type of like designed like Victorian glass. It's not actually an old glass, but it's designed to be like the Victorian glass. And because it's a dark colour, I use a light pen so I can see what I'm looking at. So draw around the pattern piece, and then when I cut the pattern piece, I cut that line off. So otherwise the tendency is everything gets bigger all the time. So cut inside the line. Okay, use the pliers for that. Might be able to use that glass again. So the little tiny shards I recycle, but you can see I kind of try and reuse little bits of glass as much as possible, because it's a precious resource and I don't want to waste it. So that's starting to build up a little bit. I'm going to do the clouds now. So I've chosen a wispy glass, which has got quite a bit of texture and it's really cloudy. I've got that one. I'm also doing, I've got a slightly bigger version of this design as well that I'm going to hopefully get around to doing today. So again, I've done the lettering already and I've got a selection of colours ready to build up. And I'm thinking I might try a different cloud. Either this one, which has kind of got a bit of yellow in it, or maybe even some grey. Depends how gloomy I want the sky to look. I've also got a really nice dark and light blue for the sky to make it look like a kind of stormy sky. So I'm going to try that one definitely with this one. So you can see where I'm up to with that. I just want to show you a couple of other things that I'm also going to be working on today. So I'm going to be carrying on cutting that out, and hopefully the next time you visit at 1, I'm going to show you how to do some grinding and foiling, which is the next kind of processes after the cutting. But I'll just show you the other projects that I'm starting on as well, which are this one here. So this is about you know, looking after our world. So I started working on this already, but as you can see, this one here, although it says don't, it's come out very dark. I mean, when it's got a full light, you can read it, but I thought I don't want it to look like remember, wage war on nature. I want it to be, remember, don't wage war on nature. So I've recut this glass with a lighter grey for the, hopefully you can tell that's the cooling towers. And so, yeah, and with this one, I'm also layering it up. I'm putting 2 layers of glass so that I can put these waves over the top of the design like that. So it's going to say, don't wage war on nature. This obviously is a volcano erupting. I'm sure you can tell that. And then another project which I'm in the process of doing. So you can see using the pen that I can fire has kind of given me a few different options. I'm also building a little house. So I had this idea for a glass house. Don't know if you know the saying, people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. And so it's about remembering how vulnerable we are in this world and that we need to look after it. So I don't know if you can quite tell, but oh yeah, I've got the pieces here that I've just fired. So these are going to be the sides. And then I've got the windows. So we're going to have a kind of devastated side and a happy side. So this is the difficult side. So we've got the broken window and the person struggling and calling for help. And we've got waves that are going to be lapping at the house. And we're going to have a kind of bolt of lightning on the roof. So that's going to be quite dramatic. And then on the cosy side, we've got a woman and child and a person in bed with a cat sitting happily on them. So, and then on the roof, I've got remember. So, you know, the message of this piece is remember, people in glass houses, don't throw stones. Look after this world. So I've got lots of cutting to do on that. So that will be interesting. And this is going to be a 3D piece. So it's actually going to make into a little house. So I've got I'll be making the walls and then I'll be attaching them together and putting the roof on it. So it will be a 3D piece. So you'll get to see a whole variety of different techniques throughout the day. So I'm kind of planning to do 10 minutes of shots. I think, is that 10 minutes already? Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there. That's just a little snippet of what's going to be going on today, and hope you can pop back at 1 and see where I've got up to with each of these projects, and I'll tell you more about what's happening over the next couple of days. Thank you. Hi, back again for my second session. So I've been doing some glass cutting in the last couple of hours and also flapping around with computers, so I didn't quite get as far as I hoped, but I have got some pieces cut out, and may as well show you what I've done so far. So I've cut this, the first Never Give Up, the little one, so that's now ready for grinding. Second one I'm in process. The little house, I've got both the sides of it, so 2 walls, 4 walls and 2 roofs, so that's ready to go. And we've got the volcano is ready to go as well. So I just thought I'd show you this piece here, which is kind of part of what I've been experimenting with the painting for, to be able to paint faces, which I think this has come out quite well. It's kind of more like the traditional way that in church windows they add a certain amount of detail. Faces usually are painted, and hands, because to try and cut a face and have lots of big thick lines going through them kind of spoils it really. So that's partly why I've been trying to develop the painting idea a bit. But as a sideline, I'm getting into all these little messages that I'm sending. Anyway, so this piece here, I'm now going to show you the next stage, which is the grinding. So this is a glass grinder. It's got diamonds on the head to grind through the glass, and it's got water underneath to keep the grinder head wet. And the reason you're grinding is partly to get it exactly the shape that you want, and also to make it to buff up the edges so that you've got a good surface to then attach the copper foil round. The copper foil is there to hold the solder, which is later on in the process. But what we're doing now is making it all fit together well and giving a good surface to do the foiling. So I'll just take one of the pieces. So these pieces here. And you can see at the moment it's very shiny and got little sharp bits on it as well. So we're going to get rid of all those. Afraid it's going to be noisy, so I won't be chatting while I do it. Okay, so then when I've ground it, I rinse it and dry it before putting it back on the paper pattern. There you go. So let's just do all those ones. You can see that the writing stays on, whereas most of getting things to stick to glass when it's so smooth is very difficult. So that's starting to fit quite well. Just going to make that angle slightly better, I think. Mind you, it needs to tuck in there, doesn't it? No, I think those ones are pretty much okay. So I'm going to go on to, tell you what, that's a little bit wide there, so I'm just going to straighten that up a bit. So then I'm going to go on to the next process, which is the foiling. Oh, I still want that to go down a bit. There we go. So now the foil. So I've got various different thicknesses of foil. The one I mostly use is the 732s. Obvious, really. It's just a kind of narrow foil that goes around the edges of the glass. And I need to use a wooden stick to push it down with as well. So let's start the first piece. Oh, by the way, thank you for people that put comments in before. And I should have my goggles on for grinding. Thanks for the comments on the first post that I did. Okay, so let's wrap this foil round. So I'm lining it up as evenly as I can, and then around the edges, and as I go, pinch it down to get a good even line round it. There we go. And then I use the stick to polish the foil down, make it nice and smooth, like that, and polish it flat on the board as well. And any little extra bits I can just push down with my nail. So for the internal bits, I'm going to use a thinner foil, but I think that thicker one is okay. The standard one is okay for these outer pieces. So let's just do those, and then I'll do, oh look, can you see there where it's a bit shiny? That needs a little bit more grinding. So I'm going to go over that a little bit more and do that with my goggles on. The thing with the grinder is that the glass that comes from the grinder isn't sharp. It kind of goes into a powder, but it kind of just goes everywhere. You end up, you know, my surfaces get covered in the powder and the machine's covered in powder. My hands will be covered as well. So it's not the kind of glass that's going to cut you, but it's still not what you want to be eating or anything like that. And you don't want it in your eyes. So here we go, wrapping it round as carefully as possible. Get it nice and level. Pinch it down. And, oh look, that's where I just ripped it as I was opening it. Ah, that's the joy of live stream, isn't it? It's okay, we can do a little overlap here. So there we go. Over there. And over to the end there. And polish it around the edges and then polish it flat to get all those creases out and give a really good surface for soldering to. I'll just foil that one more and then maybe grind a few more pieces. I've worked on lots of projects in the past where I've made big panels with groups who've made a window maybe for their own community centre or public building. It's a great way of working. And working with the Tiffany style, as you can see here, you can have lots of people working on different pieces all at once, and then it's like building a jigsaw, where it's all. You saying it's time to stop? It's like building a jigsaw, and you can have lots of people all contributing to make an amazing piece of glasswork. And you know, another great thing with glass is that the colours just don't fade. The quality stays the same for 100 years plus, which is so lovely. Okay, so I'll just finish off that piece, just slightly overlap it at the end, pinch it all down, and ready to fit in. I done that really badly actually, but that's because I'm hurrying. I might redo that. There you go. Okay, well, thanks ever so much for coming along, and I'll see what I can get done this afternoon. And by the time you come back at 4, I will have something ready to solder. If not everything, I'll have something ready to solder so you can see the next bit of the process. Thanks very much, and do send me some comments if you feel like it. Hi there, we're back again, ready to do some soldering. So I've been beavering away, and what I've got so far is I finished foiling the piece with Never Give Up on, which is just here. I've also been soldering already another piece, which I'll kind of show you more later, but that's now connected together. Remember, don't wage war on nature. And then the glass house is taking shape. It's kind of, I've ground some of it so you can see that the walls are kind of starting to take shape, and there's 2 roofs. But that needs a bit more work and foiling before I can solder it. So I'm going to start off on this little Never Give Up, and I've got I'm going to wear a mask because the fumes are not very good. I've got the window open as well, and I'm just wearing glasses as eye protection. Okay, so this is a soldering iron. It's a really, really hot iron. Well, pretty hot. It's 100 watt, and this is the flux, which is a mild acid. It's not actually Marmite. And then this is the solder, which is a mixture of lead and tin. And as you can see, the iron is hot enough to melt through the solder very quickly. So what I need to do first, I've got it all lined up on a pattern. I'm just going to flux all the seams, all the joins. So just try not to knock it out of shape, and just get a bit of flux all over it so that I can tack it together. So I'm keeping my iron nice and clean on the sponge, and then using the solder to just melt a few blobs onto the pattern. I like the cutting and the soldering best of the processes. I always think the solder is like a really strong glue that you can remelt as many times as you need to. And these blobs, they'll hold it together straight away. So that already now I can move it and it's all held together. They kind of dry really quickly and go solid, but they stay hot for a long time. So what I'm doing now is I'm just going to put a little bit more flux on, now that it's kind of tacked well together and it's not going to lose its shape. And then I can go back to it and fill all the gaps. I've probably got almost enough solder on here already. And as you can see, the solder doesn't like to, well, it can't stick to the glass. That's why we have to put foil on, isn't it? Because it can't stick to the glass. So it, you know, it comes back off the glass very easily and clings to the foil and makes a good join. So I'm not doing this like perfectly because I've got to work on the other side yet, and then I'll come back to this and tidy it up. But I'm just getting it all attached together, all stuck together for now. But try and get the solder kind of even, an even amount all over it, then it'll be easier to tidy up. The solder is a mixture of lead and tin. I think the tin makes it kind of rigid and shiny, and the lead is kind of softer. Like I said before, the original way of working with stained glass would have been with lead. Church windows are all made of lead. And I'll explain a bit more about the process for working with lead tomorrow when I'm hoping to fit a leaded panel in my front door. That's a bit of a challenge for me. Normally I would get somebody else to fit it, but being for the COVID and all that, I'm going to try and do it myself. That's a bit of a challenge for me. Okay, so that's all held together now. Looking good. And flip it over. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So flux all the seams, paint along them. Like that. And let's follow it round. I don't need to tack it in the same way this time because it's all held together. And with this being the back, I put slightly less solder on this side. And this piece actually has got front and back with the writing on, hasn't it? I'll go back to that one, it's being a bit resistant. And I'm going to do the outside edge while I'm at it on this side. It's amazing, the solder does actually melt really quickly. So some of it is just like painting it really. I also want to fill that channel with the little gaps. There we go. And this solder, we can either leave it silver or I can put a patina on it, which it makes it go black, which generally I quite like really because it makes it look more traditional, and also the black kind of frames the colours, sets the colours off well, I think. Because, you know, the solder is really only there to hold the glass in place. It's about the glass, it's not about the solder. I think when it's shiny, it draws more attention to the solder. So, done all that, flip back onto the first side. I'm going to do the outside edge for that. Try and fill that little hole there. Let's get in there. Okay, so that's pretty much held in place, and I'll just do the outside edge, which I have to hold it on its side to do that. Although actually it's getting quite hot because it's a small piece, there's really nowhere for the heat to go, so it's getting quite hot to hold. I might come back to that in a minute, finish it off in a minute. Just let that set, because I want to fill that little gap there. There you go, let's fill it. Okay, I think there's a bit where I was holding. Okay, I'm going to just leave that because it's a bit too hot for me to work on to cover the other side. I'm just going to show you this other piece that I've been doing. So the Don't Wage War on Nature. So this one, it's all soldered together, and I mentioned before that I was putting a second layer on. So you can see on the back it's actually clear behind, and I've put these waves on over the top. So the clear there is just to give it some strength to hold the waves. So what I'm going to do is give that a wash. I've got some warm water here and a bit of soap. Ordinary washing up liquid. So dip that in there. And I've got a board to work on as well. All this chipboard and MDF doesn't like water very much. So I'm just going to give it a scrub. And I don't want to scrub too hard on the letters, but I think they should be okay with just a gentle sponge. So what I'm doing is really cleaning the solder off. Sorry, not the solder, the flux off, because you don't want any acid on your work when it's finished and to be handled. And any bits of solder that are just still sticking to the glass, or any bits of pen, that's where I've been working. So there we go, that's quite clean now. So what I'm going to do is, with this one, I'm going to put some black on it, some of the patina. Got time for that, haven't we? Yeah. Okay. So the patina is another acid, but it's a bit stronger than the flux. So I'm going to put some rub gloves on. And using a bit of rag, I'm going to wipe some patina onto the solder to make it prematurely age. So here we go. So just wiping it on, and you can see it actually changes colour straight away as you do it. And it kind of slightly darkens after a bit as well. It's kind of oxidising the solder, I think. So you do lose all that lovely silver, but I think it sets the glass off nicely. So. A bit more tricky with it being 2 layers actually. Trying to get in there. And even though this is the back, I'll still put a bit on just so it's kind of in keeping. It's a shame those bits of bubbles can't stay there. They'd be quite good for the water, wouldn't they? Okay, just get those edges. And actually with this piece I might add some hooks onto it so it could be something to be hung in a window, because most glass looks better with some light through it. So I'll solder some hooks on later probably. There you go. So a couple of things to remember about my open studio. One is that you can go to my website if there's any of the items that you see on the film, or like this item, that you might be interested in buying. So my website is www.iontv.com, crackinglass.co.uk. So you can go there and have a look, and you can contact me through that page or through Facebook for more information. And also just to say, you know, I'm back here again tomorrow, same times, 11, 1 and 4. And it'd be great if you felt like popping in to see what I'm doing. Yeah, I think those are the main things I need to say. Let me just have a look how this piece is looking now. So this one, very nearly finished. I've just got to do a little bit more solder around the edge. But let's see if we can get a good picture with the light through. That's looking nice, isn't it? I think that dark blue sets the bright colours off really well. Okay, I'll leave you with that, and hopefully you'll see me